Good morning, comic book fans. Welcome back to Comics in 5 Minutes. I'm ever-loving host Shorty. And after yesterday's quite harrowing review of Red Room, I was looking for something a little bit more wholesome. And what can be more wholesome? The Marvel's first family, the Fantastic Four. That had a lot more alliteration in it than I was expecting. And it's the life story version of the Fantastic Four, which is kind of useful for me because I've not really read much Fantastic Four. I know of them, like you can't really be part of the pop cultural world and not have a hint of who they are and who they were, the troubles they faced, and the fact that the whole Galactus Silver Surfer thing happens through them. They've also been written and drawn by some of the greatest talents of the age, including people who's like Korea were made on this kind of thing. So it's like, yeah, I'm certainly aware of them, but always more in like the larger sense of things. So after reading the Spider-Man life story and after issue 1 carrying on reading because it's thoroughly enjoyable, I thought, okay, let's give the Fantastic Four a go. Let's see if it is as interesting. See if it does a good enough job of grounding itself within the real world, kind of. Because that's one thing that the way comic book timing works is the things that happened 20 years ago to the characters kind of has like a knock-on effect. But even though in the comic book world that wasn't 20 years ago, it's a fluid kind of thing. But in the life stories one, they're actually kind of telling it in as close to real time as you're going to get. They have a decade per issue, and stuff that happened in the real world affects them. For instance, the space race, which is the reason why they've sent these 4 individuals in space, actually was a thing that was going on in our real world. And then after it, when there should have been more government funding, shall we say, maybe not the right phrase here, but into space exploration and that kind of thing. There was a war going on, and the president at the time was far more concerned with winning that and how that would make him look. And all this kind of stuff kind of plays out through the comic book. But it's not just like the really huge national news story, international news story kind of things. You also deal with a few of the small bits and pieces, which is quite entertaining. You have Sue Storm with a banner at a Black Civil Rights March, which is like, okay, I'd like to think that if the Fantastic Four existed in our world in the 60s, they would totally be involved in that kind of thing. But that's one of those like, well, as someone who's not read the Fantastic Four, I'm wondering if the Black Civil Rights Movement ever got mentioned in the 60s in the Fantastic Four comic books. And it's not just that one occasion. It comes up again later on where Reed Richards is talking about how hard it is to move on when some people are still fighting for the past. And that's an ambiguous statement, but I like the fact that it was ambiguous and it could lead you down your own path for it. It shows quite a decent level of skill as a writer. Mark Russell taking over the writing, by the way, on this one, and thoroughly enjoyable. His big concept sci-fi stuff is really quite well done. Art is one of the things that was a bit more of an issue for me. Sean Isaacsy, because for an awful lot of the way through it, it feels just Marvel in-house style, which I speak about at length. It's the kind of it just when you open it up, it will look like a Marvel comic book, and that's cool. Like really good artists who can do that, they are in demand because they can generally be relied upon to put stuff out within a timely fashion, and it will always be as good as it needs to be. But then you get into the cosmic kind of stuff in it, and it shows that the guy has a much more of a knack for that kind of thing. Yes, he does pretty cool people walking around in rooms talking, which happens a lot in this, but he also does the massive cosmic stuff really quite effectively as well. Something which I've always found out, called the Kirby Crackle, appears in its own little way in this, which is kind of a nice nod back to the work of Kirby. And there's a sense of terror to it as well. In the writing as well, this is one thing that I was kind of surprised where they went in this one. But they do have, like, I see in-character conversations about the terrifying nature of a universe that isn't antagonistic towards you. It just doesn't care. Which is a very Lovecraftian cosmic horror kind of feel. The entire point of Lovecraft isn't that the scary monster out to get you, it's the fact that the thing is beyond your comprehension, who don't even know that you exist and will not care if you die. Definitely a sense that's going on with this, but then it brings it back into the Marvel world by having Galactus being like, I can smell your fear, I am going to destroy you, which is a bit more of like, yes, horror on a cosmic scale, but not necessarily to do with the cosmology or anything like that, just the fact that it's this giant thing that wants to eat a planet, which is terrifying in its own way, but in a different kind of way. But all of that kind of plays quite nicely. One thing that doesn't happen too much is action sequences. There are in there, but in terms of like big over-the-top fights, which I kind of think in my head is a Fantastic Four thing, again, not read enough, I could be totally wrong on this one, there's only a couple of sequences like that. When you do get action and peril, it is much more on a personal nature. Somebody getting angry and grabbing hold of somebody by the neck and slamming him against the wall. In a closed environment, somebody spontaneously combusting or turning into the thing. And it's all drawn really quite nicely. But in the back of my head, I think I wanted some more motion to it, which is unusual for me because a lot of what I like in terms of TV shows and movies involves people having conversations, walking through. Go and watch The West Wing, and you'll see exactly what I mean. It's done quite effectively in this one, and the writing pace kind of matches what they're doing with the storytelling pace. But as I say, just a little bit of me wanted something more on the grand scale of let's have a huge fight kind of thing. But it's a niggle, and it's probably only going to affect me. Other than that, thoroughly enjoyable and nowhere near as harrowing as the Red Room. Bye.